You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Ria Yu.
And we are here for our mid-month check-in for the month of May, which is also Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, or as we like to call it,
APAM.
It's been quite a busy month, which is why we're coming at you a little bit late this week.
Yeah.
But Rira, how has your Heritage Month been so far?
Heritage Month so far? It's been there's been a lot of things going on. My town recently had a book festival, and I ran into Henry and
nice.
I ran into Henry and CB, and it was just like really weird. It was like, oh hi, right?
I mean, it's like we're building community out here. We're building a family of book peeps. And that's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm always seeing, it's really weird because I feel like more and more Asian American authors are being featured this month, whereas like other years, it's just been like, oh, like let's list the same 5 Asian authors for APAM, whereas like this month it seems like there's more diversity.
I think that's a good sign, right?
It is a good sign. I also saw Phil, Angry Asian Man's Instagram post, and I was super jealous that he got like all of these books from Penguin.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, where's my package at?
Yeah, where's our books?
Well, to be fair, I did receive like 2 books from Penguin.
Really?
Yes.
I haven't gotten anything from them lately.
Oh, it was addressed to us, but they mail it to me, so
I think because we gave them your address.
I know it's a more permanent address considering Marvin works at the collaboration office.
That's true. But
it would just be really weird if Marvin got like a bunch of books through collaboration.
Yeah.
How has your month been so far?
It started off super busy because I attended the 2019 Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, which happens every year around this time, and saw a bunch of films. Got to see The Farewell again, the Lulu Wang Awkwafina film. But it kind of I was super tired by the end of it. I think I watched almost 10 films over the entire week.
That is a lot.
And I stayed up, went to the after parties. The thing with events like APAM and the film festival is a lot of people. This is like the only time we get to meet. It was just a lot of catching up with friends and just being with community, which is great. But afterwards, I took a break. So all of last week, I kind of did nothing with APAM, which is nice. And then these next 2 weeks are the end of APAM, which means there's still a couple more events to go to. So
yeah,
keeping busy.
Oh, I forgot to mention in the last episode, I went to a BTS concert. I went both days,
right,
and the most magical nights of my life. And that is how I kicked off APAM.
I was looking at your stories and just stories of everyone who went, and quite a bit of my friends also went both days.
Yeah.
And were they the same show both days?
Yeah, it was the same set list. I thought it would be different on the second day because I went to a concert last year and the set lists were different. But I went both days because my friend had a spare ticket, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I will go. And it was floor seats too. So I was like, oh man, this is the closest I will ever get to my favorite K-pop boy band.
Crowded though?
No, because they have it was seated. So there's designated spaces, which is really, really nice because I am way too old to do standing room concerts anymore. The last time I did one was Epic High, and that was 2 years ago.
Well, from what I've seen of Asian pop concerts, it's a lot more coordinated, I feel like, than what you would expect from a Backstreet Boys concert.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely more production happening, so therefore they need to have way more coordination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with the audience, I mean.
Yeah, that too. It was really interesting because a lot of a lot of people I know through this community. Like I didn't know that they were BTS fans or even K-pop fans, and I would go through my Instagram and I'm like, oh, they were here.
I mean, BTS is on top 40 now, so
I mean, true, but like the thing about that concert was we're going to move on to book news pretty soon, but the thing about that concert that was really nice was the diversity. Like there were queer people, people of all ages, races, and like some of the people that I know through the Asian American community who are like much older than I am went to the concert, and I'm just like, why didn't you tell me? We could have hung out because I'm not a young folk anymore. So, but it was nice, and that's how It was nice, and we're going to move on to book news because this is a book podcast, and that's what we do.
No, I want to hear more about BTS. Tell me about your experience.
Oh my God, we need another podcast for that. For more of my K-pop takes, you can follow me on Twitter at Rirabu.
We are here to talk about the latest book news for the month of May 2019. A quick reminder that our May 2019 Books and Boba Book Club pick is This is Paradise by Christiana Kahakawila. And thanks to our book club member, Lauren Lola, for sending us a voice file informing us of the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you so much. I always feel really bad for butchering Asian names on this podcast. We really do our best, but it helps when people send us audio files or if I find an audio book clip somewhere.
I started reading the first chapter, the first story, and I have not finished yet. So
I just finished reading the first story, and it is great. Like, I'm really excited to read all the other ones. I'm pretty sure all the other ones aren't like as suspenseful as the first one. I think the first story like definitely grabs you and like sinks its teeth on you. And I'm really excited to read the rest.
Yeah. And you'll be hearing our thoughts about this collection of short stories on our discussion episode, which will be coming out at the end of May, beginning of June. But let's take a look at the latest book deals in the world of Asian American literature. Reba, what's our first story?
Our first story is Putnam picked up Olivia Abtahi's Perfectly Parvin. The YA novel follows Parvin Mohammadi as she tries to get Matty Fumero, the cutest boy at school, to ask her to homecoming. Her plan to win him over is to not talk too much, act like the heroine in her favorite rom-coms, and basically be everything she's not. But a wrench is thrown into her plans when a different boy from her Farsi class likes her just as she is. Publication is set for spring 2021. Ooh, this sounds like my jam. I'm so excited.
You are a fan of
I love rom-coms so much.
Rom-com genre, especially like teens trying to emulate what they think rom-coms are.
Yes.
Or what they learn from rom-coms.
This totally reminds me of Maureen Gu's I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which Marvin still has my copy of and should probably read. And we also interviewed Maureen on that book a couple episodes back. And
we should catch up with her too because she's
her new book's coming out.
Yeah.
And it's also, it has a K-pop star as one of the characters.
But this sounds great, not just because the main character is almost my name twin, but also it sounds cute.
Yes.
It's there's definitely room for like cute YA rom-coms with diverse cast members.
Oh, and for those who are curious, the main character for this novel is Iranian American.
Our next story is Javelin acquired NPR investigative reporter Tim Mock's book Misfire, which is described by the publisher as a groundbreaking work on the NRA.
Tim Mock covers like social issues and politics on NPR, I believe. I haven't really heard much of this book simply because it just like got acquired and it probably doesn't even exist yet. But it sounds interesting.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's great to have diverse people writing all sorts of books, including nonfiction, including investigative reporting too.
I love reading books based on like investigative reports.
I don't think I have. We should probably find one.
Oh my God. I don't remember the title of the documentary, but I remember the book. I remember the book that it's based off of. It's called Bad Blood.
Okay.
And I think
yeah, that's the one
it's the
about
HBO documentary.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who like makes this like printer size.
It's supposed to be a blood tester, like a blood lab tester, I guess.
Yes.
That's supposed to give you a full set of labs with a tenth of the blood.
Yeah, which, obviously is a scam and not possible. It's very, very interesting. And my friend's reading the actual book right now, and apparently it goes into way more depth than the documentary. So
nice.
I really like this genre. We should probably read more of it for this podcast. I just have to do my research.
Yeah. If anyone has any suggestions of what we should read, we'll take a look at it.
Yes. Next up is Page Street bought Lori M. Lee's new YA fantasy duology, which will begin with the book Forest of Souls. Blending Western fantasy tropes with Hmong shamanism, the story follows Shersha Ashwin, who is training to become the Queen's next royal spy. When she learns that she's a rare and powerful Lightwinder, she is summoned to the realm of the Spider King, where her newly awakened abilities are needed to cull the bloodthirsty dead wood. Publication is set for spring 2020. Congratulations, Lori.
Ooh. Next up, Abrams acquired world rights to Rahani La Roca's Where Three Oceans Meet, illustrated by Archana Srinivasan. The picture book follows a girl who travels with her mother and grandmother to the tip of India and learns about the strength and love that women pass down to their daughters across borders and oceans. Publication is scheduled for spring 2022.
Next up, we have another picture book. Make Me a World picked up teen climber Ashima Shiraishi's debut picture book, How to Solve a Problem, The Rise and Falls of a Rock Climbing Champion. Illustrated by Yao Xiao, the book follows Ashima on her journey to become one of the top climbers in the world, teaching readers how to think like a climber to overcome any problem they might face with grit and determination. Publication is set for spring 2020.
That's actually pretty timely because so Ashima is one of the top wall climbing, like rock wall climbers in the world. And the 2020 Olympics will be the first year they're introducing rock climbing to the Olympics.
I'm sure that's what the publishers had in mind.
So yeah, I mean, people have covered her on a lot of explainers and a lot of videos on the internet. And actually, a friend of mine is actually producing a documentary about her story. So it's really cool to see her getting more recognition leading up to Olympics. Like she's literally gonna be our next Chloe Kim, so watch out for that.
These young people, coming up in the world.
I know, what are we doing with our lives?
I know, what are we doing with our lives?
Just reading about them, I guess. Next up, in a 6-figure preempt, Harper Design acquired international journalist and Stanford professor Seema Yasmin's book Muslim Women Do Things. The book is described to be an illustrated collection of stereotype-shattering stories that showcase the diversity of what it means to be a Muslim woman and non-binary person in the world today, profiling Palestinian race car drivers, Iranian astronauts, and much more. This book will also be a debut for illustrator Famida Azim, whose work has been published in the New York Times.
This sounds pretty cool. I'm not sure what it will look like, I guess, because I've definitely seen illustrated encyclopedias before for adults.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a bunch of maybe vignettes or biographies.
Yeah.
But 6 figures. Go get that.
Yeah. Man, I was really surprised when I saw that. I was like, dang, they thirsty.
I mean, if the market says they want it, right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it will do really, really well. I don't own this book, but I forgot the title, but it was about women scientists throughout history, and it was also illustrated. And it was kind of like a book that you can give to young readers who can, read pretty well.
Yeah.
And also really educational for adults. So I'm guessing that is kind of like the demographics that they are going for this book.
When I was a kid, I had an illustrated encyclopedia of Star Wars shit.
Oh, really?
And that's how I know way too much about the now non-canonical expanded universe of Star Wars.
That's really funny because I recently bought my nephews a illustrated Star Wars encyclopedia for them because I was like, it has pictures. You guys like Star Wars? Read more.
Yeah.
So last up in our list of book deals is Cameron Kids bought world rights to What's Growing in Mummy's Tummy. Mummy's Tummy? God, like, why am I suddenly British already? Cameron Kids bought world rights to What's Growing in Mommy's Tummy, a board book by author-illustrator Rachel Chuchi Lee. The book teaches young readers how a baby in mommy's tummy grows bigger every month, from the size of a poppy seed to a raspberry, from avocado to mango to watermelon. Publication is set for spring 2020.
What's the use case? This is probably something you give to your kid if you're about to give them a younger sibling, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty cute. I mean, kids ask adults all the time
That's
about
true.
like how biology works.
It's good that this takes place after the dirty parts.
Of course.
Moving on to the latest book news, Books and Boba. Ooh, this is about us.
Yeah, humble bragging here.
Was featured on Listen Notes' list of 7 bookish podcasts for avid readers on the go. And we were also featured on Apple Podcast 2019 APA Voices collection.
Yes, I've been seeing the same graphic kind of floating around
Yeah.
in all of my social medias because all of my friends and colleagues are listed on the Apple Podcast list.
It's pretty cool. I mean, taking a look at the list, it just looks like they took last year's list and added a couple new podcasts.
Yeah.
But it's great that we're getting recognition again.
I was just like, yeah, we are pretty much the only literary podcast out of that list, except for 88 Cups of Tea.
Yeah.
But which is a great show, by the way. But they usually cover they're
more about the process. And
they're more
writers
about the
and,
process and storytellers, and not just like novelists, but also like screenwriters. So it's a little bit different from our show, but I would definitely recommend it. It is great.
They have a really great interview with R.F. Kuang, who was just in town for the Nebulous. She didn't win, but to be nominated for her first book is a pretty big deal. And also, Julie Dow had a really good interview there too. Yeah. So thank you to Listen Notes and to Apple Podcasts for recognizing Books and Boba as the best book-based podcast in the world.
With that features Asian authors. So we have to always add that in parentheses.
Just let me have this. And for those of you listening, if you can share the post that we made on our Twitter to let other people know how awesome we are, that would be greatly appreciated. It would be a great APAM gift for us.
I was looking at our Twitter feed earlier today because we were pretty active. You had shared the Apple Podcast list of APA podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of your friends was just like, I didn't know you had a book club podcast.
Oh.
And I'm like, Marvin, we've been active for like 3 years.
To be fair, I just met that person last night.
Okay, never mind.
So
I was like, are you ashamed of this podcast? Are you not sharing it with your friends?
People know I have this podcast. This is probably my most successful podcast that I produce.
Oh, that's
to be
kind
honest.
Of saying something because you produce a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been our most consistent podcast, believe it or not, because we've literally read a book a month for the last like 2.5 years.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Which is something.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to move on to the next piece of news. So Deadline reported that Netflix will adapt Erin Entrada Kelly's middle grade novel, Hello Universe, into a family film. The book won the 2018 Newbery Award, and the adaptation will be penned by Michael Golamko, who is a playwright and the screenwriter of Always Be My Maybe. And it will be produced by Forrest Whitaker and Nina Yang Bonjovi.
Bonjovi, yeah.
Yeah, Bonjovi of Significant Productions.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting because I know both Mike and Nina. Nina Yang Bonjovi is literally a super producer. She is the person responsible for films such as Fruitvale Station, Dope, Sorry to Bother You. Like, she literally...
all of my favorite things.
Yeah, she literally just she's pretty much responsible for Ryan Coogler's career, like the director of Black Panther, Creed, and the original Fruitvale Station. And it's super exciting that she's producing because everything she makes is good. Yeah, and Michael Lomko, who also used to write for Grimm, has been just he's been killing it for the last.
That makes me feel really like relieved because adaptations are always, always tricky, right?
Yeah.
So if you have one element wrong, things can really go askew. So it's nice that they have like someone who is a very reliable producer and a screenwriter who is, who is also Asian American and also like can write in that voice and is very, very good at what he does. So for those of you who don't really know what Hello Universe is about, we have covered it briefly in other news episodes, but I'm just going to summarize it briefly. Hello Universe tells the story of a friendship formed by three middle schoolers. There's Virgil Salinas, a shy boy living in the shadow of his boisterous family, Kaori Tanaka, a self-proclaimed psychic, and Valencia Somerset, who is ostracized at school because of her near deafness. When a bully traps Virgil and his pet guinea pig at the bottom of the well, it's up to Kaori and Valencia to find their missing friend.
That sounds actually pretty. It's kind of like shades of like Stand By Me a little bit.
I'm trying to think like what else it reminds me of.
Yeah.
But like the book is definitely at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. But do you know if there's like fantastical elements to it, or is it just kind of like more of a kid adventure?
I think it's more kid adventure. I don't think it is magical in any way, but it does, I love friendship stories. So this sounds really cute, and it sounds like it's going to be very, I guess, like emotionally edgy. Like it will teach kids empathy,
right?
Because you have three characters who are from very, very different backgrounds, and it's about standing up to bullies and working together and all that good fuzzy stuff.
Very excited about where this project goes, and congrats to everyone involved. Sounds like it's gonna be great. Our last news story is Netflix announced an open casting call for the role of Claudia Kishi for the remake of The Babysitters Club. Who do you think should play her?
I don't know. I mean, the casting call asked for a 12... Like, Claudia is described to be 12 years old in this remake and also Japanese American. I am curious as to whether or not they're going to be super strict with the Japanese American part.
Right.
For me personally, I think it's fine if it's played by any East Asian American actor who can pass as a Japanese American on screen. But I do understand like maybe the outrage if that does not if they don't cast a Japanese American actor.
I mean, the bigger outrage would be if they casted a non-Asian actor.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying because it's kind of like how for To All the Boys I've Loved Before, there was all that, not controversy, but there was like a lot of criticism about not casting the main character as a mixed race Asian American, which is like a little bit different from casting someone who is, say, like Korean American rather than Japanese American. But we'll see. I mean, Netflix so far has had a pretty good run with adaptations and also representation in their works.
I mean, unlike a lot of people, I have zero emotional attachment to The Babysitters Club.
Yeah, same here, ironically. Like, there was an article that was passing around earlier today about like Maureen Gu, Sarah Kuhn, and a bunch of other Asian American authors. They were featured on it, and they were talking about how Claudia Kishi informed their writing and inspired them to write. Yeah,
I've said this before, but like maybe it's just the way our society genders like kid stuff. That was always like the girl book to me, right? So I read a book that was like the Karate Club, which is like
Karate Club.
It was like a bunch of it was like three brothers who like are different levels of karate-ness. And I don't remember the details anymore, but I think they were mixed race, half Asian. But if anyone can remind you what that story is about, that's where I learned what the solar plexus is, where you punch in the stomach. Anyways, good luck to everyone going out for this casting call, and I am looking forward to what comes out of it.
I really hope that it's whoever plays Claudia is a fresh face, and another star is born, like in Moana, like I love it when unknowns get cast into things.
Yeah. And we actually have a couple other film related news.
Yes, they're not really concerning Asian American or Asian authors, but it does relate to, I guess, representation
diversity,
and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll start out with the somewhat lighter piece of news, I guess. So Nicola Yoon, her book, The Sun is Also a Star, came out in theaters last week on May 17th. Nicola Yoon, by the way, is not an Asian author. She is a Black author, and she's married to a Korean American engineer. So that's why her last name is Yoon. But I read The Sun is Also a Star, I think right when it came out. And I absolutely love this book.
I've seen it on your bookshelf.
Yes. Yeah. It is so cute. And it's so, like, it's about... So to just give you the gist of it, it follows two teenagers. One is this Jamaican-born American girl whose family is about to be deported the next day. And she's from Brooklyn, and she's really into science, and she really wants to have she really wants to stay in America, the end of it. And then the other character is a Korean American boy who is interviewing to get into Ivy League schools, so he can become a doctor, which is what his parents want. But in reality, he is a really gifted poet, and he really wants to go into writing. And the story takes place over the course of a day.
Okay, so it's like a before sunset type of thing?
Yes, it is like a before sunset thing. And pretty much Daniel, who is the Korean American boy, he falls in love at first sight with Natasha, who is the Jamaican-born American girl. And he's just like, we're meant to be, and just give me a day to woo you over. And so they pretty much go on all these dates throughout New York City, while
this is that one episode from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Right. and at the same time, he finds out that she's about to be deported, so they try to delay it in some ways. And it's really I think it's really timely, and it's a beautiful love story, in my opinion.
Did you watch the movie?
No, I haven't. Although I will say that when the casting was announced, I know there was another outrage over Daniel Bay's Daniel Bay, the character's casting, because
he was played by Charles Melton. Yeah.
Yes. And people were like, "Oh, he doesn't look Korean. He doesn't look East Asian." And I'm like, "Well, tough luck. He is Korean. I think it's his mom who's Korean. I'm not sure, but he is mixed race Korean." And I'm just like, whatever. He looks fine. My only complaint is that he looks a little bit too old to play a teenager, but I was fine with it. Whatever. That's my personal opinion.
I think, it's fine. It's the same suspension of disbelief that we gave, Lana Condor as a half Asian sister to two other half Asian sisters.
Yeah.
But it was a little because Jake Choi plays his brother. His parents are all full Asian. So, I don't know if white audiences didn't notice, but it's definitely a little noticeable.
Yeah.
If you do pay a little bit of attention. I think it's more it just shows that studios are still hesitant when it comes to Asian, especially leading men,
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad that things like Always Be My Maybe's coming out soon. That might,
Definitely. But I have not watched the movie yet, and I actually don't know what critics have been saying.
It's been mixed.
It's been mixed.
Yeah,
okay.
It didn't do so well. It got literally murdered by John Wick during the weekend.
Ugh, that's rough.
So we'll see. It still has. I think it still needs. I don't know if it's releasing worldwide, but I think it made back its budget at least. So that's good.
But I'm going to compare this adaptation to the next adaptation I'm going to bring up, which, forgive my rage, but you've been warned. So Rainbow Rowell's book, Eleanor and Park, is being made into a film. I think it's Plan B that is producing it. And Rainbow Rowell, the author, is going to be writing the script, and she's also going to be the executive producer. Now, this book is also a love story between like an Asian boy and a non-Asian girl. So it's actually a white girl and an Asian boy, and it takes place in Nebraska. I would like to say. Don't quote me on that. So these two kids, these two teens, they kind of form a romantic relationship on like their school bus, and it's not as fluffy of a story as it seems, because the main girl is from a very she's from a household where there was like abuse happening, and with the Asian boy who's actually mixed race, like his dad is white and his mom is Korean. He's having issues with identity and kind of self-loathing, and it sounds interesting, right? But what it was executed in a very clumsy way, and if I'm brazen enough to say, it definitely had racist stereotypes, and I can't really judge it as well as other people have, because I have not read this book. But I so wish that Wendy Shu's Tumblr hasn't shut down, the creator of Angry Girl comics, because she, like a couple years ago when the book came out, she wrote like this righteous takedown of the book and why it catered to like racial stereotypes. From excerpts that I've seen, it definitely plays into like exotic,
like Orientalism.
Yeah, Orientalism, as in like the boy is described as like silky black hair, almond eyes, and there's really not much in substance to his character other than like him looking Asian.
I've always been confused by the descriptor almond-shaped eyes.
Yeah, everybody's eyes are freaking almond. Like, who cares? Like, if your eyes are not almond, you're an anime character, because that's just the way eyes are.
And I get it's coded for Asian eyes, but I mean, how do you describe Asian? Just say Asian eyes.
Just say
right?
Asian eyes.
They have East Asian features. Like, it's not that hard. You don't have to like describe the slantiness of my,
Yeah, just why? But yeah, there was like descriptions like that where it just kind of plays into exoticism, and also him being like, I wish I was like my brother who looks more white than Korean. And I'm like, okay, like I know that self-loathing is, kind of part of growing up, especially if you're from two cultures and you're trying to like find your identity. But the book doesn't end with him being all okay with him being Asian American. It's just it just kind of ends with him like hating himself for his Asian culture and heritage. And I'm like, this is like yikes.
So I'm guessing the community is not for this adaptation.
No, at least the Asian American community is not for this adaptation. I think, like, I remember when this book first came out and like the outrage over it, and I think it was like very, very much well deserved. And the author, I think she did release an apology, but then a couple years later, she kind of like stood her ground and said that, her representation was good. And the reason why I wanted to talk about, or wanted to bring up, Rainbow Rowell's adaptation is to also just kind of briefly compare to Nicola Yoon's adaptation, because they're both not Asian authors. But Nicola Yoon, in my opinion, did a fantastic job in depicting a Korean American character who, you kind of see where he's coming from. You kind of see, like you see more of his parents' background rather than like, oh, like my mom wants to erase all traces of my Korean heritage because that's considered inferior. It's not like that in Nicola Yoon's book. And I think it really helps that like, she's married to a Korean American guy and she's able to like get those accurate descriptions. Like, what is it like to be what is it like to be a Korean American male, and how also like anti-blackness that's like briefly mentioned in the book. So it's just, you have two separate instances of authors who are not Asian and trying to depict an Asian character, and who does it successfully and who doesn't.
I mean, I guess it comes down to this idea that like, I think people outside of specific cultures can still write about that culture. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
But we're at a time and place where it needs to be more than just like, you need to do the work. You need to like really go beyond the surface level assumptions you have of what it's like to be Asian or Black or Latino or marginalized or queer, right? You need to, if you're going to write something that centers on that perspective, you need to understand that perspective. And like, you don't need to be immersed in it or to disappear into it, but you need to understand that like there's a responsibility, if you're going to be depicting a story centered on something that you don't personally experience, to be respectful of that experience, to understand that, like, maybe I don't know what it's like to live your life, but I do understand that it's different, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think in this day and age, that is the at least bare minimum of what you should be thinking about when you're writing about these stories. Yeah,
I think it really definitely just comes down to research and respect. Like, if your main character is a doctor, you're going to talk to a doctor and figure out like what it's like, and what are the requirements, and what does their home life look like, and how does their how do they go about their day, and all that stuff. And also, since we mentioned Babysitter's Club, that's written by a white lady, or was written by a white lady. Now it's like a series of different writers, but it was originally written by I don't know her name.
Anne Martin, I think.
It was originally written by Anne Martin, and she was able to write Claudia in like a believable way that it resonated with so many Asian and Asian American authors. And it just goes to show that you can write other ethnicities, you can write other people's experiences, but it has to come from a really tangible place. The article that I mentioned earlier in this podcast, where it interviewed a bunch of Asian American authors who talked about Claudia Kishi, the editor of the Babysitter's Club, he mentioned how the author, like, all of the characters are from like the author's life. She, like, her childhood friends, teachers, local kids in her neighborhood. So it came from a place where she could actually draw experiences from. And I'm just saying, like, you are allowed to write whatever the hell you want, but really take responsibility. Like I said earlier, I have not read Eleanor and Park, but I definitely don't ever plan to read it. Funny story is that at our first book club meeting, after we had talked about Heroine Complex, someone from the book club came up to me and asked, not asked, but said, "Oh, you should, talk about Eleanor and Park." And I think my gut response, like, because I responded like almost immediately, no. And I was like, no, like, we're not reading that. And the reason why is because this person is not Asian. And as important as representation in literature is, I think it's more important to represent Asian and Asian American voices rather than just representation on the page. Because as you can see, it can go really, really wrong. like Rainbow Rowell's book reached the New York Times bestseller list, which is why this is being made into a movie, because it was hugely successful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the people reading it aren't reading into it as much as we are. But I think when the people you're trying to represent is upset about that representation, I mean, you need to think about that. And I don't know, maybe like we'll see how that affects how they adapt this into a film.
Okay, here's the thing. I would have bigger faith in this adaptation if Rainbow Rowell wasn't writing the script. Like, if they had hired an Asian American, a Korean American screenwriter, which there are a lot of, by the way, like, I would be like, okay, they might be able to do this right. They might be able to, by having like newer voices, more like people who actually come from that culture, like maybe it will turn out to be okay. But my faith in it right now is like not very, it's not good.
Well, I mean, take Crazy Rich Asians, right? Like they had like Adele Lim came in and kind of punched up that script, and a lot of the things that we loved about that adaptation that was new, that was added in addition to stuff that happened in the book, came from Adele's punch up. So there are ways to save it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, needless to say, we are not looking forward to it.
I actually I'm indifferent towards it. But I just, if you are ever recommended Eleanor and Park by people who are like, oh, it's a fun love story and it has like Asian American representation, you have been warned. Because I've definitely been recommended this book by non-Asian friends, not knowing how harmful some of the depictions were. So, well, there you have it. You can still enjoy problematic things. Just know that they're problematic.
And I guess on that note, we'll call it for this episode of Books and Boba. Thanks for joining us as we go over the latest book news and book deals of in the world of Asian American literature.
And Rira rants.
A quick reminder again that our May 2019 book club pick is This Is Paradise by Christiana Kahakawila.
It's going to take a couple times for us to like nail it, but I hope that by the discussion episode, we will be able to say the correct pronunciation.
Thanks to everyone who have already shared their thoughts about the book on our Goodreads forums. If you are reading along with us, please sound off. Let us know what you think about the book, and we'll include it in our discussion episode.
I also want to mention that a poll went up on our Twitter account.
Oh, yeah.
Because
we're finally going to read.
Because as promised, we're going to be reading our very first Murakami book on this podcast.
And in life.
Because neither Marvin or I have read a Murakami book before. So we have listed a couple of titles on the poll, but you are welcome to tweet us recommendations that are not included in that poll. I will say that we have excluded IK84 and Norwegian Wood. IK84 is like 900 pages, and we don't have time for that. And Norwegian Wood, I know that is like the book that propelled him into fame, but it's also about suicide. And I sometimes I'm okay with it, but I'm gonna just say pass on this time around. So please understand that we will not be considering it for next month. But all the other books are up for grabs.
I'm like almost scared that after we read it, we'll be starting to see his influence in every other book we read, because apparently he's super influential and everyone wants to be him. So.
Well, we've read a couple of books already where people have said, oh, this is just a Murakami book. So, like, I wonder how my reaction's going to be.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be putting that poll on our Twitter. So check out @BooksandBoba and let us know what we should read. And yeah,
Right now, the lead is Kafka on the Shore.
Oh.
That's winning right now.
Okay. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. Before we go, I want to give a quick thank you to the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian American community. We're proud to be members of this collective, and you can check out our fellow podcasts, many of them also listed beside us on that Apple Podcast list, by going to the website podcastpotluck.com. This podcast was recorded at the Potluck Podcast Studios located within the Visual Communications offices at the Union Center for the Arts in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. Thanks to Visual Communications for lending us this space, and congratulations to them for pulling off their Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. You can learn more about VC by going to their website at vcmedia.org. So yeah, that'll do it. Bye, everyone.
But we're still here, and we're going strong.
It's an exciting time in Asian America. There are more movies, TV shows, books, and music reflecting us than ever. But all of these represent just a small slice of Asian American culture and experiences. So what do? Tell more slices. Asian Americana is a show that explores these slices of distinctly Asian American culture and history. We've talked about how Chinese Americans built California's Sacramento Delta, the art scene turns gallery institution Giant Robot, a play that explores the lost Cambodian pop music of the 60s and 70s, and, of course, Boba, just to name a few stories. You can find Asian Americana at asianamericana.com or on your podcast app.